one.
All right, tonight we have the Complete Street Safety Committee meeting on November 5th, 2025. It is 6:30 p.m. We are going to get started on time. Can we take a roll call? Paul?
Here, present.
Christian?
Present.
Raymond?
Present.
Emily present. The only one missing is Darius. Can we get an motion to adopt the agenda for tonight?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to open it up to public comment. I know
Yeah.
we have two lovely gentlemen here for a presentation, but Chris, I think you have some public comment.
Yeah, no emails yet, so, and no one in the Zoom, so Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Illustrations to accompany my comments. I'm here to talk about the modifications that were made to Old County Road recently. You were not asked to evaluate those when it was recently presented to this committee in March. Comments were made, though it doesn't appear that those influenced the design. In response to one of the questions, Karen Kinzer described a community event that had been taken place to plan for this. And she was quoted, I quote her saying that bike riders who attended asked for protection when they were riding on Old County Road, asked for protection. Karen kept referring to the requirements for a street with a 25 speed limit, and that's how they decided this. While that might be the posted speed limit, what the actual average speed is for that stretch of road, what is that? Linda Detmar was on the committee at that time, and in referring to the earlier Complete Streets meeting about the project, she said that she remembered Peter Grace was here and had quite a bit to say about the danger of this particular stretch of road. I didn't know Peter, but from my own experience riding this road, we have not made it safer. Dooring on this stretch is now a real risk, as is getting killed or injured as a result of trying to avoid getting doored. Few drivers are aware of the 3 feet rule. And even if they are aware, it will be difficult for a driver to give a bicyclist those crucial 3 feet that the bike rider needs if they need to leave the lane to avoid an unexpected obstacle. What I ask each of you, all of us, Maz, I think your kids are too young for riding on the road yet, but imagine someone you love. I'm just a resident. You don't care about what happens to me, but someone you love on a bicycle trying to navigate that narrow space between the two trucks in the video that I shared with you earlier. Somebody you care about. Would you consider that bike lane safe for that person? For now, most Brisbane residents are unaware of the new parking opportunity that this configuration has given them. So we're unlikely to see issues except in that loading area. In fact, bike riders might feel that they have a lot more protection now because there seems to be a lot of room. It's kind of luxurious to ride on it. But as that parking lane begins to get use, I'm expecting unfortunate surprises. I hope these surprises only result in negative feedback to the city officials responsible for this and nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Chris regarding this?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I agree that it's a dangerous configuration and puts cyclists especially at risk. And most cities, San Francisco in particular, that's the common way of doing it. And those are also being removed because of the dangers in the way it's constructed. So I was thinking maybe I think the parking issue is like not going to go away as far as allowing big trucks to park there at that curb. And since the bike lane becomes a shared roadway in the after the turn coming into town, just before the skate park, maybe we just make it shared roadway from the Village Shopping Center into town, instead of trying to have a dedicated bike lane right there.
Are you trying to address the need for the loading?
I'm trying to address the fact that if that loading doesn't go away, and that's going to be parking for trucks that park there, that maybe we don't try to have a bike lane right next to it. Maybe we just make it shared roadway from the Village Shopping Center, because after the turn, it becomes shared roadway. There is no dedicated bike lane.
So I think that's more a question for Maz and Tomas.
No, I was just,
Yeah.
I thought that's what we were,
Yeah,
just
but
a
ask them.
observation, huh?
Do you want to ask them if that's like?
Oh,
something
no,
that
I
could be-
was just kind of, yeah, I was looking at, see, I get you.
Ask them if
got
it's
you.
possible. Would be great if it was
I,
possible,
I,
right?
I was directed it to you, but I was trying to,
Understood. Good evening, everyone. Maz Virginia, Public Works Director. I absolutely, we can consider this. So Chris had brought these concerns up earlier, and we had exchanged a few emails. So our plan right now is to monitor the situation, and that includes looking at vehicle counts, speeds, making sure that we're getting input from our community members like Chris and some of the things that she's already provided to us. And we can certainly make modifications and changes to this, but we'd like to get a little bit more data first before we start, before we make those changes. And so that's where we are right now. But certainly we can look at whether we keep it as a Class 2 facility through this area, or if we go to a Shero type scenario, or look at the potential of modifying the loading zone and that requirement there. I think there's a number of things we can consider and look at. And that's what our plan is right now, is to really monitor this location, any other feedback that we get from the members of the public, as well as working with our police department to see what they see out there and any data that they can provide us. So those are all important things, and we can certainly make modifications. But where we are right now is we're going to, again, information gathering, see how this is working out, and then we can go from there. It does meet the minimum standards, as Chris has alluded to in her communications, but obviously minimum and best practice, they can be different things.
So I'll be interested in Raymond's observations about this road, if you've ridden on it a lot. I commuted regularly up until March, and for 6 years. And the stretch of road that actually was most terrifying was not that far turn. It was the first entry into town, that turn, because drivers tended to turn closer to the middle of the circle of that turn. And so they'd kind of cut you off there. I'm talking about in front of the B of A building. And when you got to that other turn, again, drivers would kind of lean into the left there. And so you actually had quite a lot of room. It was rather safe there. The dangerous part was in front of the B of A building. And that kind of feels okay now. But
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to ride on the new roads, but yeah, back when, before the lanes, most of the time my concern was, anytime I was near a parked car, because dooring is probably always top of mind for me when I ride around the city, so yeah, I think the point is well taken.
Is it possible to put that area in a Google map on the screen? Just want to get better understanding of, what I know, that area was repaved and is being relabeled or getting all those new marks, but,
Yeah, so here's the aerial view. Let me know if you want something in particular, but here's that stretch in between Bayshore and San Francisco.
While Christian's looking at the map, Maz, for the information gathering, are you thinking a month of information gathering, 6 weeks, 3 months? What are you thinking as far as like when we can check back in and?
I mean, we're going to look at this ongoing. In my response to Chris was up to a year potentially, but it doesn't mean that if there's something that comes to us and we decide that we want to act on it sooner, there's nothing that, it was more like a cap of how long we would be looking at this particular concern. But yeah, within a month or two, I would say we can probably come back at the next meeting and provide an update on what we've seen, what we're hearing, and then decide if we want to make any changes.
Okay, thank you.
can you drop that little person there and sort of like navigate through the street? And can we do something now? Do you have a suggestion, Chris, that would sort of mitigate the problem right now until we get more data?
It's kind of hard to work with what's been created, but what's designed, first of all, what's designed on the park side of the road works. That's actually fine. All the concerns are on the other side of the road. And what's between Bayshore and the two driveways in and out of Brisbane Village, that works. That's all manageable. It's from the loading zone to the skate park that is dicey. So we could put the loading zone
Why
back
are we
in the
having a loading zone there? Can you show me the loading zone here?
turn around and move up a little bit. The loading zone begins right where that, back up. It begins by the crosswalk. Yeah, it begins about the crosswalk. That first section there, the first square of sidewalk is red, and then the yellow begins and goes up a little past that no parking sign. And so that most recent photograph that I sent you with the Coke truck, it was parked there in both the bike lane and the loading zone.
It just feels, for a main road to have a loading zone there, it doesn't feel right. And your points are very valid. So something needs to be done there.
Paul, do you have anything else?
Well, the thing about the loading zone is some of those trucks wouldn't be able to make the village parking lot turns, the big trucks, is why semis have always parked out in Old County. And it used to have the double yellow out in front of the village shopping center in the bank where all the trucks used to park. Is how they got around being able to deliver into the village shopping center. So that,
there's a lot of space by where the former Bank of America was, and then if you look behind the village shopping center itself, there's a lot of space over there too. And to me, this is, a main vessel for in and out town, kids, bikes, whatever. It doesn't seem like practical to have a loading zone there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Whenever I'm driving to town, the area that seems the most precarious or there are opportunities for accidents are folks going in and out of that shopping center, right? And it's right after you have a curve in the road. So it just seems like there's trees there, so it's poor visibility when people are going in and out of the parking lot and trying to merge. So it just seems like there's a lot going on in such a small area. So I just wonder if there's a different way to address the commercial needs of that shopping center rather than putting so much on that stretch of road.
Yeah, similar to that, I don't know, Tomas, but Maz, when we had conversations about visitation, we were fortunate enough to have the gentleman who owns the market come to one of the meetings. It was great for Tomas and Karen and Randy to then have a conversation with him about like, kind of using some of his space for like loading zone for his trucks, right? So it was safer instead of like right in the middle of the road. I'm, you know, not thinking we need to eminent domain anything, but is there a way to have a conversation? I don't know who owns the shopping center, but if there's a conversation with them about, there's a lot of tenants, obviously, right? And they're all gonna have different needs and different arrivals of different products and whatnot. But is there a way to have a conversation with them about loading and space for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, our city manager, Jeremy Dennis, has been in contact, so we can certainly bring this item up as a topic of conversation. We can take a closer look at the need for that and potentially looking at realigning it in some other configuration. In the short term, we can also we can add an additional sign for the bike lane, because I know there's one in the island as you're coming over from Bayshore. Maybe we would put one closer to where, right where the bend is before you get to the loading, as an additional visual. But I think all of these, this conversation with the location of the loading zone, certainly we can have that and see if there's an opportunity to reconfigure.
Thanks.
Yeah, may I, one more thing? One of the things that I hope we've learned from this is that when this was presented earlier, it was presented not as we're adding parking, we're adding loading. It was, we're adding bike lanes. And so that was what we focused on, and we did not catch, or many people did not catch, all of the implications of this because of the presentation. So that's a learning for Public Works to be a little bit more transparent in the future about what is all included in a plan. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Maybe last comment on this. I'm just also wondering if there's ways to just broaden the scope of potential solutions, everything from modifying the way that the access to the parking lots, right? Because already it's tight as it is, and there's a lot of trees, so there's poor visibility in and out, right? So might that be in the solution space that could be evaluated, or even if there's access from the other side of the parking lot? Because I don't know if there's roads, I can't remember what's back there, but, yeah. So anyways, just wondering if we can, rather than just shifting it up and down this road, are there other solutions?
Understood. I think our purview would be to look at any opportunities to reconfigure this and not just slide it around. If there's opportunity for it to be the designated space to be within the parking lot, all of this would be part of the conversation. Okay. Heard. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I travel that road multiple times during the day and every day, and I'm a little concerned with myself that I didn't know there was a loading zone there until you brought it, because I never seen any vehicle park. But just to make a very clear difference, you have a lot of space on this area versus Midtown. Midtown, there's no space. You got space on the back, you got space by the Bank of America. That something could be accommodated there, for their tenants.
I think part of that trick is that, the Bank of America space is going to be reimagined, right? And I don't know when or how soon, but, perhaps in future planning, it could be maybe we add an entrance at the backside on Bayshore, right? But there's just a lot that's going to be changing right there at that intersection in the next 5, 6, 7 years. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the October 2025 meeting?
Yes.
Hopefully, yes. Yes. Okay, does anybody have any edits or comments, changes we need to make to them?
So we talked extensively about, the presentation and so forth, and we did discuss the process, and my understanding is that those were going to get submitted. They were going to get gathered and submitted to council, and then where are we at with that?
Yeah, the comments, I reached out to the consultant. It was actually from a memo from Jeremy Dennis a while back, but comments are due by the end of the year, and then I can forward you that memo again, but yeah, by end of the calendar year.
Yeah. So is your question about the specific plan, or is your question about the minutes? Because we can talk about the specific plan when those comments are due, but I'd like to get the,
Well, I mean, a little bit on both sides. Just want to make sure that we're continuing with the plan, because if you remember, we were making a lot of hypotheticals because there was some stuff in the vacuum. The city has some sort of a plan, and they had another plan. So I just want to see how that process is going to play out. So at one point, they both reconcile and they take our comments, into consideration.
yeah, so this specific plan comments are due by the end of December. And so our committee will, I was gonna suggest that by November 28th, we get all of our comments sent to Tomas, and Tomas can then forward them to the committee. That way, at the December meeting, we can approve our committee's comments on the specific plan, and then we don't have to think about it again for the rest of the year. But that would be a way for us to add our collective as a committee comments on the specific plan. Once those are submitted, then there's the planning commission has their work that they need to do, and then that goes to the city council, and they have their work to do. And by, I believe, Tomas or Maz, correct me, it's May of next year that there has to be a, here you go, you're entitled to start building construction,
I
correct?
believe so, yes.
Yeah, so it's not too far out. They could in theory get started.
So you're saying that, because we did submit our comments, right? And so you're saying to summarize those and put all of them in one document, or?
So those are separate. So that was a different comment. So our previous comments that were due by August were for the EIR, which was the Environmental Impact Report that the city's consultants put together. This is specific to the specific plan that Baylands put together.
Got
So
it.
now we're commenting on their stuff, which
Got it.
whatever
Okay.
order it went in, but it's just a matter of looking at that much shorter document of about 500 pages with pretty pictures,
Right.
and then adding comments to that.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Anybody have any edits or changes to the minutes from October 2025? No? Can I get a motion to approve them, please?
Make a motion.
Second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right, guys, we have a presentation from CCAG.
Hi, good evening, members of the committee. I'm Jeff LeCap. I'm Program Director at the City County Association of Governments of San Mateo County, or CCAG for short. I'm joined tonight by Patrick Gilster, Director of Planning and Fund Management at the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. And we're here tonight to talk about the Countywide Transportation Plan update. This is a long-range transportation plan for the county. The last time the plan was adopted was pre-pandemic, so goes without saying that a lot has changed in how we move and get around. And so we're starting off our engagement to hear from you and to help your feedback, and your comments will help craft the vision and goals for this statement. And this is our kickoff. This is the first presentation in our roadshow, and so we're happy to be here. Thank you for having us. I'm just going to advance the slide. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Well, that was me, so maybe I'll just drive for you. But
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just the agenda for tonight, we'll kind of go over the overview of what a CTP is. Then we'll do a deep dive into how we move in San Mateo County. We have a lot of great information that we've collected from recent outreach events in the past few years. Then we'll look at looking ahead to 2050, which is the horizon year for this plan, and then we'll conclude with next steps. Thanks. So again, this is a joint effort between CCAG and the TA. CCAG is the county transportation agency for San Mateo County. So we are responsible for doing the CTP update, but we also are working together with the TA, with Patrick. So I'm going to turn it over to him for the presentation.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening. My name is Patrick Gilster. I'm, as Jeff mentioned, the Director of Planning and Fund Management for the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. To hopefully clear up the roles of our different agencies. You can think of Jeff more as like the policy side and the TA more as the large sales tax funding side. So a lot of our transportation sales taxes and a lot of our funding that goes to local streets and roads and highways and ped bike come from Measure A and W from the sales taxes. So we're here jointly working on this effort as our funding goes to support all of the policy and projects that come down to the local level. Next slide. As Jeff mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of the countywide transportation plan itself. If you go to the next one. So the CTP helps us create the vision for the future of transportation in San Mateo County, sets our priorities, and guides the decision-making that CCAG and SMCTA make as we plan, fund, and help deliver local and regional transportation improvements. So it's all the things from supporting what you're all doing at the local level to our major investments in the county and how that all feeds into the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's regional transportation plan. So our very large-scale projects. Next slide. So the CTP is an umbrella for many other more detailed plans. So it doesn't get into the existing active transportation network itself and every detail of that. Kind of aggregates all of those into the highest level vision. And then so we're going to be updating that. And then subsequently, a lot of these other plans will be updated over the subsequent probably decade. I know CCAG is looking at updating the comprehensive bicycle pedestrian plan later next year following the CTP update so that it's reacting to the goals and visions set here. But there's been a whole host of things that have happened over the last, when was the last one adopted? 2017? Almost 10 years ago now. It will be 10 years as we approach kind of the end of this update. So as a, oh, you can go to the next slide. You're good. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're
just,
good.
is it okay to ask question while you're presenting, or you rather us wait until you're done?
If you have questions as we go, it depends on how formal you all are. If you want to wait, I'm happy to answer questions as we go through.
So when you just mentioned that you're going to be updating the pedestrian plan, so do you get that information from the different localities, or you send somebody, and how does that work?
You gonna work to work? Yeah, so I actually was the consultant on the last comprehensive bicycle pedestrian plan, so I can talk to you about that. We take all the local plans and aggregate those into into the vision for the county. So that plan will take what you've done at the local level, and then we'll look at how the different facilities cross jurisdictional boundaries to update what is like the county priority network, which is a subset then of all of the identified projects from the local level. So the larger scale plans, we don't generally come up with new projects. Most of these things come from all of your local efforts, including the bike and ped plan. No problem. So we wanted to touch on that there's been a lot of progress made on some pretty large projects since the last adoption of the countywide transportation plan, ranging from anything from express lanes projects to the Caltrain electrification project, which has been huge with the Peninsula Corridor electrification project, and the 101 Smart Corridor project. So looking at how we deal with emergency service responses up and down the corridor, and if there's a problem on 101, can direct folks off to El Camino Real. And that extends, I believe, all the way from the southern border, and is the new segments in the northern part of the county will open later next year, right? Trying to remember everything from the CCAG side. So very exciting stuff there. So a lot of big projects. On top of that, there's been a lot of other projects that have gone there, but those are just ones we're highlighting here. So these are the types of large scale projects that the CTP looks at that goes up to the regional level. Next slide. Oh, I can do it myself now. Duh. Sorry. Maybe. It apparently doesn't like Jeff.
This works.
Thanks. So as Jeff mentioned, we're just kicking off the update to the CTP. So this fall, we're coming out and talking about what we've seen across the county in terms of the existing transportation network and systems, and also what we've heard over the last 5+ years from a whole host of different efforts that we've been underway with. So not wanting to reinvent the wheel with what public engagement has already happened, and we're trying to take that feedback, and we've aggregated some of that we'll talk about today, and then really wanted to validate that with your committee's experience locally here before we take that into developing the division, to defining our vision and goals for the CTP update to make sure it's reflective of what's actually happening at the local level. So this winter, we'll then be taking all that feedback, developing the strategies and action items. We'll then be coming out in the spring to generate the overarching project list. So as I mentioned, those are generally fairly large projects, but that includes other programmatic things like our shuttle program and our bike and pedestrian program, all those other things that we want to know are still important out in each community. And then over the course of the summer, we'll be developing the draft plan itself. So then that'll be out and released for public review. And hopefully in the fall, by the end of the year, looking to adopt the CTP. Next slide. So some critical outcomes we're looking at with this CTP update, kind of taking our lessons learned from the last one and identifying with both of our agencies. What we really want to get out of it is really creating a bit more practical of a plan. We identified a lot of things in the last one, but really trying to strategize on what are really the most important things as a county we should come together on at the large scale project level to identify to move forward. We want to talk about advancing equity throughout all of our projects, keep anticipating changes in technology and funding, how we help leverage the regional, state, and federal funds as well in that drastically changing environment that we currently live in at the federal level, especially with the DOT funding, and then creating a simpler way for us to measure progress. Jeff and I took a look back at what we did in the last CTP, and I think we had something like 30 metrics or something like that we were looking at. It's a lot to keep on top of. So we're looking at how to shrink that to the most important metrics so we can actually measure our progress over time and more easily report back on how we're doing as a county. Yeah.
How those like novel initiatives like driverless car, play out in this process? How do you approve it? How do you review it? And
That's a great question. Actually, as a joint project, CCAG and the TA, we developed a countywide autonomous vehicle strategic plan and actually looked at those questions of what do we have authority to do here in the county. The hard answer is we don't have a lot when it comes to fleet vehicles like Waymo or Cruise. Those are regulated by the state. So the California Public Utilities Commission and the Department of Motor Vehicles, they're the ones actually doing the regulations and allowing them to extend into San Mateo County. I know our Board of Supervisors were not thrilled when that was happening, and so worked with us to try to figure out, well, what can we do? And so there's different ways we can direct some of the technology, but not all of it. So we can help adapt to it, provide different resources for our cities, and potentially look at things like autonomous vehicle shuttles or things like that we can identify. Here's where we want these things to go to better communicate that. And actually, jointly, following this, we'll be kicking off that study across the county with all of the cities to identify where there's opportunities for those as well. So this will take into account that there is continuing to be emerging conversations with those agencies or with those different technology companies to figure out what we can do and how that goes up to the state level and how we can advocate for that with our different agencies. No problem. So talking a little bit about how we move globally across the county. This isn't going to get into the nitty gritty for each city, but we're trying to use this as illustrative ways for you all to help provide some guidance to us. As you can see, over the past few years, we've done a lot of engagement across the county, and I know you all have done a lot locally as well. So from the Regional Plan Bay Area 2050 Plus that is underway, and then the Reimagine Samtrans effort, Caltrain has their ongoing electrification project and updates with their customer surveys. Samtrans created a bus stop improvement plan that looked at all of the cities across the counties and the upgrades there. Kudos to Tomas for applying for those funds for some of the ones on Bayshore Boulevard, which more will get awarded this week from the TA.
Tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow. So we're excited about that. CCAG's done a whole bunch of updates to different community-based transportation plans. The TA has launched our 101 Corridor Connect program to look at priorities for congestion management and multimodal options around 101, including our Active 101 project. On the coast side, there's the Mid-Coast Side TDM plan, and a whole host of other things even larger than this list. So we didn't want to go back out to the community and ask the same questions that we've been doing, so we've kind of aggregated those today. So if you go to the next slide, all of those different efforts aggregated is about 30,000 touch points with folks. So when we took a look at all the different online surveys, employer surveys, in-person events at pop-ups and workshops, targeted social media responses, a ton of meetings with advocacy groups, business organizations, and community-based organizations, hosting all of these in different languages. We wanted to make sure that we're taking those and then moving those forward into how we move. So if you go to the next slide, we'll start kind of at the highest level of what we're seeing across the county, especially when it comes to commuting. And we often talk about commuting because that's what's measured in the census, but it's not the only thing that's happening out there. And oftentimes that puts too much emphasis on commuting when some of the trip types we make here in the county are actually not the larger scale trips that we make in a day. But when we look at the commuting ones that we measure, 70% of commute trips are still drive alone, 8.5 are carpool, 3.5 is transit, and followed much lower by walking, and especially biking here in San Mateo County. The interesting things is that the journey to work data also shows us that our average trip distance for work is still 20 miles. So people are still traveling a pretty good distance to get to work. So their work trips may be long, but actually as a whole, when we look across the county, I don't think it's on this slide, but there's almost 56% of trips in San Mateo County are under 3 miles in length. So when we talk about mode shift, we're not really looking always at the journey to work trips. It's sometimes as simple as, how do you get to the grocery store? Do I want to be able to take my kid to school by walking or biking? It's those smaller type of trips that if we make those more accessible to people, that we could see some mode shift as well. So trips between counties too, we do see a lot of inflow from external to the county into the county for work trips. So the population of the county hasn't changed dramatically over the last few years, but the projected work trips and employment opportunities here in the county are still projected to continue to grow pretty dramatically. So we're looking at a large influx of folks. So there's about 2/3 of employees, as I mentioned, are entering the county from another county, and about 2/3 of residents are still exiting the county to go to other job opportunities, especially in San Francisco and Santa Clara counties. Next slide. So when we take a look at our larger regional connections, into what you can kind of see on the left is the current inter-county mode split. So that's how people are traveling now. A lot of people still driving alone, but it's still a pretty significant number of people taking BART or Caltrain as well. But we also asked folks in some of the efforts we've been doing in our regional transit connections plan, how would you like to travel if better options were provided to you? And so a lot of people indicated they'd prefer to take the train if they had easier ways to get there, especially, and they had more frequent services. The Samtrans bus service and the ferry also had pretty high gains in that as well with what people would like to do. And when we asked folks in that regional transit connection survey, which county should we prioritize improving connections to? No surprise, really. The highest ranked one was San Francisco, because that's actually where a lot of those external trips are flowing to, up to San Francisco. Interestingly, Santa Clara sees more trips than trips to Alameda County, but there are more connections already existing to Santa Clara County where there's not as many transit connections across the bay on either of the bridges. Next slide. So in the next few slides, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the networks. We'll start with the roadway network, talk about transit, and then we'll talk about biking and walking. So when we take a look at the overarching countywide roadway network, it's really anchored by 101, 280, but also has key connections like SR 92, so Highway 1, Skyline Boulevard, Woodside Road, some of those other major facilities as well. Bayshore Boulevard right out here, Sierra Point Parkway. Overarchingly, there's a grid-like roadway network that serves some of the denser bayside cities, but more winding, more rural highways on the coast side. And then our warehousing and light industrial uses are really concentrated near SFO and the port of Redwood City. And no surprise, 101 is our primary freight corridor here in the county, along with the Caltrain Railroad, which does serve some rail uses as well for Union Pacific still. Next slide. So what we're hearing from all of these different efforts across the county, especially our 101 Corridor Connect efforts, which looked at up here in the northern part of the county, but also along the mid and southern parts of the county as well. Traffic congestion is still one of the top priorities across the county, as identified in our North County multimodal strategy and our South County multimodal strategy. And then in weekend congestion on the coast side and emergency access concerns are what we're seeing there. some examples of specific locations where people want to see improvements to the roadway. El Camino Real, Highway 1, Hillsdale, Holly, the 10192 interchange junction, Old County Road, pretty consistently across the county has been requested that we've seen, Willow Road and University Avenue in East Palo Alto, just to name some. The list goes longer in the North County multimodal strategy. There's more specific roads. Yeah.
When you mention emergency access, you mean their inability to be able to get to somewhere because of the traffic.
That's true. Yes.
And so I've brought this up at like county events, and I think that we really need to have paramedics within the fire departments that actually ride motorcycles, because that whole thing of the golden hours, especially for younger infants or older people, it's like minutes. So that would be a really great benefit for all kinds of reasons, but that especially to be able to have a paramedic first responder be able to be on the scene without being affected by traffic. Highway 92 and all the places we could think about.
Did that ever come up on the coast side as an option? That's the first time I've actually
Yeah, I
heard
don't think
that.
I've heard that
Cool
as an
option.
option.
Yeah.
On the coast side, any increases in width were always challenging to deal with.
Great. And then similarly across the county, when we're talking about how does driving feel to folks, it's still the most useful and reliable way of traveling here in San Mateo County compared to other options. But that doesn't mean people still feel safe doing it. There's still a lot of the roadways that people see speeding or driver distractions and still have concerns about some of our major corridors here in the county. And it's still expensive to drive, and expensive to park, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's still a concern we've been hearing across the board. And as you can kind of see, if you go back one more still, sorry. The chart on the right, I think no surprise, shows that those major congestion areas in the county, we're still seeing near 380, 92 on 101. This one doesn't show it on the coast side, but on the weekends, like we mentioned, there's still a considerable amount of congestion as well. All right, next slide. When we talk about the overarching transit network in the county, we're really anchored by Caltrain, Samtrans, WETA, and BART. And then there's the shuttle program as well that provides services, especially first last mile services across the county. The major rail services are only along the bay side. There are not as many transit options at all on the coast side that are much more infrequent. The bus service, the Samtrans service, is our backbone of the transit network here in San Mateo County and is the bulk of trips that we see for transit here in the county. BART and Caltrain see relatively equal numbers of riders across the county, but obviously Caltrain extends a lot further through the county as well. And as I mentioned, our shuttles provide a lot of access. Unlike many of the other counties in the region, we have one of the more robust shuttle programs, even though it's still never enough money to fund all the shuttles we would want in the county. So looking to see what else we can do there as well.
Would that include like Brisbane with the commute.org shuttle and funding that Brisbane puts towards that shuttle, which I believe we've done for this next year to be able to fund it?
Yes.
And they had to reconfigure, the route.
Yep.
To be able to
The combined route.
balance the budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
On slide 14, do you have a preference on those type of method of transportation? And if you do, is your organization in a position to sway the way you want people to transport? Like, for instance, employer shuttle, like you give incentive to those people, or just in general?
I was like, which one is slide 14? This one. So you mean how can we help support the shift in transportation?
If you have a preference in this type of transportation, and if you do, are you in a position to incentivize some of them, for instance, employer shuttle?
So our employer shuttles are free across the county. It's a requirement of the Measure A shuttle program that the Transportation Authority and CCAG operate. So those are already free. They're paid for by the business partners most of the time that commute.org helps organize. I know the local Brisbane shuttle, I think Brisbane is providing some of the matching funds coming up since Caltrain, with their fiscal cliff, is not able to provide more funding in the future for those. So we have different ways that we can encourage those.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought that was, those companies like Genentech. I was confused. I thought that was a type of shuttle that you were saying here, but you're talking about the other shuttle. Oh, okay.
We're talking about the local like commute.org shuttles. We don't provide any money to Genentech or Walmart or any of those. We actually, when we updated the shuttle program a few years ago, and we'll be looking at it again this next year, we actually eliminated their ability to apply for our funding. So our local public funding shouldn't be, in my opinion, used to subsidize large-scale corporations who should have to do some of these things as part of their impacts.
It's interesting that the ferry at Oyster Point doesn't go to San Francisco. And I can imagine the amount of usage that shuttle would get, or that ferry would get. It only goes to Alameda.
Yes, we are, well, not we. The San Francisco Bay Ferry Service is looking at updates to that shuttle route currently. So if you're not aware of that, that is also underway and that is one of the options actually, to go from Oakland, Alameda to San Francisco and then connect down here to better build that connection.
And if I may, one other thing that I've brought up at the county level, as well as with Samtrans, the service, of course, for these transit-orientated developments doesn't provide adequate transit because so infrequent the times. I mean, I know Caltran is, I think they're like every half hour now instead of every hour.
Correct.
But, it needs to be, more frequent. And I know you guys are working on that. But one of the things I'm concerned about for Brisbane is I know there's like, for the seniors especially, the taxi companies charge like $5 to take you somewhere like over to South City to go shopping or something like that. So there are programs that some people know about, but a lot of times people don't realize that there are cost-effective ways of getting around. But one of my concerns is that we've never had a Samtrans bus that goes over Guadalupe Road from Bayshore over to Daly City to Carter Street, to Market Street, and more importantly, would enable people to get to San Bruno Mountain, the state and county park that's up there. And the county is always trying to encourage people to get out into our parks. And, the fact that there isn't bus service that goes over this part of the mountain would be a great benefit.
Writing that down. Great. You look like you have another question before I move on.
I'm not sure if you answer my question, and so do you have a preference of what transportation you guys prefer?
The preference is what you all want locally and what your vision is setting locally. So in each of your general plans, we're taking a look at what does the mode shift goal look like in your city, and how does that plan build upward to the county goal. So as the Transportation Authority, we fund all of these modes of transportation. So we're mainly looking to support what your vision is for those.
So you're not shooting for environmental goals or less vehicles on the freeway? And the other question I have, are you lumping all private sectors in that drive alone?
Lumping all private sector?
Yeah, is that what that is, the 61?
So the 61%, yeah, is anyone commuting that's with no one else in the vehicle to work. Yeah.
Cabs, all that, especially with the whole Uber and Waymo and all that.
That is a great question. I don't actually know if Uber and Lyft, if it's just singular, gets counted. I don't think it gets counted as drive alone. I think there actually is a separate taxi amount in the census data. So I don't think that includes the people using Uber and Lyft. But I think that's generally relatively small.
Yeah, I guess I had a question related to the bus statistic. In the last session, we had a planning consultant share the vision for a new section of Brisbane, which is disconnected from Old Town Brisbane. And part of their overall strategy was to be reliant on shuttles, right? To have less parking in this new development area, to try to, and that hopes was that by offering more bus service or shuttle service, that, you know, people would be motivated to not utilize their car. So it'd just be interesting if you could share, you know, offline afterwards, any data you have around, you know, the survey respondents around busing being the preferred if conditions approved, like, you know, what were some of those factors just for, you know, this city's consideration?
Yeah, all of that's available in our regional transit connections plan, so I'm happy to share that with Tomas, and he can send out the link to all that. The appendix is in there that has also all the public engagement and what people are interested in. And we broke it down into the different types of things that would encourage people to use more transit that way.
Great.
So happy to share.
Thanks.
Great. All right, can I remember which slide we're on? Transit network. Transit network, yes. All right. So we talked about the overarching network. So actually, if we go to the next slide, I think what we're seeing when we take a look at a lot of this data is that our busiest stations here in the county are Redwood City, Millbrae, Hillsdale, Daly City, and Colma, when it comes to a mix of both BART and Caltrain. Our ridership, BART and Caltrain ridership is still climbing to pre-pandemic levels, but it's still 50 to 70% of that. So we are not anywhere near close what we've gotten to pre-pandemic. So that's why we hear about the regional measure and the issues with funding for especially Caltrain and BART in Muni. The heavier rail services have a much higher deficit than our local bus service that, on the next slide I'll get into, is actually back to 100% of pre-pandemic levels. And then when we take a look at transit access to Caltrain, especially in the North County, most people are driving or taking local transit, which includes the shuttle options to regional transit. And in the South County and Mid County, most people are walking to regional transit. So it's the people who live nearer to transit in the South area are actually walking. I think in the northern part of the county, some of the land use is a little bit more spread out and away from that it's not as dense near some of the stations. If we go to the next slide, when we take a look at our bus and shuttle network, Samtrans, as I mentioned, is the backbone of the transit network here in the county. We have 10 express routes, 20 fixed routes, 45 school-related routes, 2 on-demand services, 1 in Half Moon Bay and 1 in East Palo Alto, 24 commute.org shuttles, and about 1,800 total bus stops across the county, only of which 30% provide a seat and 15% provide a shelter. So we have a long ways to go of upgrading all of those. As I mentioned, one of Samtrans's plans was the bus stop improvement plan, and looking to set aside funding to do those as well. Our busiest routes across the county are El Camino Real, which provides the bulk of the ridership actually for Samtrans. 292 goes from all across the county actually, and then 122 to SF, South San Francisco, Stonestown Mall.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's somebody outside, Thomas.
What do you mean?
Keep going, Jeff.
Okay. And then 2 other routes in Daly City as well. And as I mentioned, the biggest takeaway for us is that Samtrans ridership is back to 100% levels. Shuttle ridership for those first last mile, especially business-related shuttles, are only back to 50% levels of ridership. And a lot of that has to do with our different return to office and work patterns. The folks that are using Samtrans are often more reliant on Samtrans for their everyday trips and not just work trips as well. So that's why we're seeing a difference in the different user types of those different options. And then as part of our shuttle program last year, we did onboard surveys with a lot of the riders and identified if the shuttle service wasn't available, though, how would you still get from your starting location to your destination? And most people said they would try to take the bus, walk, or drive alone, or have to use a rideshare company as well. So still providing a really great benefit. While the shuttle service is only back to 50% of the ridership, it has one of the highest satisfaction rates for customer experience using it as well. So the service is good, it's just still not matching people's return to work patterns. Next slide. So some of the things I think to the question about what things people are interested in with return to transit would make them choose transit. This is just a high level part of that, but this is where we got some of the feedback that we still need more frequent and more reliable transit service. So can you count on your bus to be there? Is it coming enough to make it something that you can just show up at it? And so I think similar to your comment about the train and the 30-minute frequencies, is it there enough that you can feel comfortable not taking a car and still having access to it? People also want to take more transit, but really would need, as I mentioned, the more frequent, reliable service, more first last mile solutions. So when you get to the end of the major transit trip, how do you get from there to your end destination? And that's a whole host of different types of treatments from, if you're on regional systems, the shuttle network, bicycle and pedestrian systems, lighting, wayfinding, all of those types of things that make it easier to get to destinations. And just generally more affordable fare options and commuter benefits. While Samtrans provides a lot of that, the services like Caltrain are more expensive to folks across the county. When we take a look at our active transportation network, you're good, Tomas, don't worry.
I'm just anticipating over here.
No, you're all good. When we take a look at the active transportation network, there are some existing countywide connections, but most facilities are provided locally within each city. What this map is from the CCAG Comprehensive Bicycle Pedestrian Plan, the last version, that just shows the existing bikeway countywide network, so that kind of subsect of the local network, and what facilities are actually what we consider low stress, so all ages and abilities, and are they connected? And I think the easy way to look at that is that they're not. We still have quite a ways to go in this county of making sure we're building those connections, especially across jurisdictional boundaries. One of the hard things that we take a look at in these larger scale plans and even locally is having a good inventory of the sidewalk network. So one of the things we're doing countywide is a giant AI assessment of sidewalk data across the county. So every jurisdiction will be able to have all of that inventory as well. And that'll be a part of the comprehensive bike and ped plan update. Next slide. So what we're hearing from folks about active transportation, so people walking, biking, rolling, safety is still one of the highest concerns of being able to feel comfortable using that for any type of trip, not just commuting, but also taking your kids to school or entertainment or shopping, all of those. People really want to walk and bike more in this county, but they're really looking for major intersection safety improvements, Highway 101 crossings as part of our Active 101 effort. We're looking at improving up to, I think, 15 of the 23 crossings across the county and figuring out how our funding can help better support that. Better creating low-stress bike and walk facilities on our major corridors like El Camino Real. Better lighting, more benches, trees, so all those amenities that make it a good experience to want to walk and bike. If it doesn't feel great, you're not going to encourage people to continue to use that. The other thing we've been hearing is people want more e-bike incentives. So how do we help provide subsidies for folks that could use these trips or may have a bike or may need not have more than one car per household, have better options to get them beyond just that local 1 mile around their house. So as you can see on the right, there's not as many people using a scooter or e-bike or a bike, but there's a large amount of people who really want to walk or bike when we take a look at both North, Mid, and South County as part of the 101 Corridor Connect program.
Do you know if the biking or scooters demographic driven?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we can take a look at that. And by demographic, you mean like what age groups are using that in particular? I don't know that level of detail. So as Jeff mentioned, the CTP is taking a look towards 2050. So really what we want to hear from you tonight is how should this change and what are you most interested in? So if we go to the next slide, there's a whole host of things still underway across the county, from Caltrain's grade separation corridor crossing strategy Samtrans is leading the Grand Boulevard Initiative, looking at improvements to El Camino across the county, improvements to Dumbarton in the southern part of the county. CCAG is kicking off their local road safety plan implementation this spring. The Transportation Authority, in partnership with CCAG, will be kicking off the Peninsula Shuttle Program update. So keep that on your radar for things, how the program will be funded for a larger scale program. We'll be kicking that off later this year. There's some major projects under construction on the 10192 interchange for the safety and operational improvements project. And then at the Transportation Authority, we're also updating or also adopting our 101 Corridor Connect projects, priority projects here by March. So all that's to say, there's a lot underway, but there's a lot still influencing transportation. And I think this goes to some of the issues faced across the county that influence transportation or can benefit from transportation, but that we don't often can directly influence. But some of those things are housing supply and cost. So we're slated to have a large influx of housing, especially here in Brisbane. And how do we accommodate that growth across the county? Especially some areas we can't expand the transportation system, so it's using what we have more efficiently to move people and not always just move cars. Lots of climate risks in different areas of the county, from wildfires to tsunamis on the coast. Lots of things for us to take a look at. Aging population across the county. How do we support people aging in place across the county, and what other modes of transportation are they going to need as you age? Making sure that those are available. So no matter how you need to travel, you have the options to safely and comfortably travel. E-devices, e-bikes, e-scooters, shared micromobility, all of those types of things are expanding here in the county, figuring out how we support those. The ever-looming transit funding deficit and the changes in autonomous vehicle technologies are all things that will influence us here that we need to take into account at some level. Next slide. It's actually, if you go one more. All right. So that was a lot of me talking. So if you'll indulge us, we're really here to hear from you about 4 different topics to help us create those vision and goal statement for the CTP update. So as part of that, we're really interested in hearing what currently works well. So from your perspective, what's working well in the transportation system today? We don't want everything to be bad. Hopefully there are some good things that are working well, but we do understand that there are key challenges. So we also want to know what are the most critical transportation challenges in the county or that you experience here locally that we should make sure is reflected in the plan. Are there any underserved areas in your city or the county that need special attention or should get called out or could use more focus in the future? And then taking a look at the future, my favorite question to get folks thinking and excited about the 2050 horizon is, if you had a magic wand, what one transportation project would you want to see implemented? So I'm not sure if it's helpful to go one by one or if you want to answer any of those, but feel free to, if you'll allow us to hear from you about what's important to you.
Sure. Ray, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I use a lot of different modes of transportation around up and down the peninsula and into the city. Overall, very pleased with Caltrain and electrification and just the opportunity to use that. What I'd say is what would help me use it more, because I'm one of those that would use the train, if there were more places I could go, is I feel like the more access into different parts of San Francisco, because I feel like right now both Caltrain just stops at 4th Street and BART only goes to certain parts of the eastern side of the city. So if there's some more seamless ways to get to other parts of San Francisco, would be fantastic. I feel like if there were more last mile options, e-bikes, et cetera, just to make it more convenient when you get off to be able to cover the last distance. And then lastly, pet-friendly options. I was just surprised. There's a lot of times I would want to take, my dog without having to drive. And, currently I'm not aware of any options that allow for me to do that. Yeah.
Great. Christian?
Yeah, so I'm thinking on the e-bikes, all these e-devices, but also just regular good old bicycles. Especially here on Bayshore, there is a specific area, and I think it's part of South San Francisco. So I was wondering if there's, an organization that could help Brisbane and the San Francisco either talk to each other and try to come with different solutions to improve, the different connectivity to improve bike riding. So I'm talking about the on Bayshore, there is a off-ramp that,
Yep. I'm
You know
very
what I'm talking
familiar with
about?
that for Bayshore Boulevard where it comes off.
yeah.
Right.
So,
The northbound off ramp. Yeah.
so in terms of, there's a major work center in South San Francisco, and I'm sure either people from Daly City or the city or even Brisbane go there, and that's a very questionable area there. Just wondering how this comes to play, who steps in and sort of help out.
Great question and great tee up for my team. So we will be adopting the Active 101 North-South Mobility Corridor, which includes Bayshore Boulevard as a priority connection between Brisbane and South San Francisco. So we will be back next spring to talk about that, and then following the adoption of that network, helping across the county using our funds to actually address some of those key connections. So encourage Tomas and Maz to continue to keep in contact with us, and you'll probably see Sue Ellen Atkinson, the manager of planning and fund management on my team, talking about how we can help across the county kind of play that bridge to support your local staff in those big critical connections. But I wrote that down.
Paul?
Oh, shoot. Well, where do I start? No. I appreciate the work you guys are doing. I mean, that's part of what's working well in the transportation system, right? The different agencies really working together to make things a viable plan. Critical transportation challenges are some of the old highway exits, like off of 280, where traffic backs up onto the freeway to exit. Things like that. I'm sure you're working on that. That's still in San Mateo County, right?
That is still in San Mateo County.
Yeah. Page Mill Road, is that it? Page Mill, Sand Hill, not Sand Hill,
No, that's not
Page
San Mateo
Mill.
County.
Alpine, one of those.
Alpine is,
Yeah.
yes.
So.
We are
think-
working on Alpine.
Okay,
yes.
things like that are really dangerous, but, so one of the key challenges, for our highways, even Old Bayshore out here, and I'm really, concerned and adamant about it, and, I've brought it up over the years here in Brisbane at meetings, and my concern are the dangerous trees that we have along our highways and roadways. And to be quite honest with you, I've brought this up before, and it's been said that those were presumed facts, and that my comments were, well, the point I'm getting at is you are responsible for damages if the trees were dead, diseased, or improperly maintained. And so there is no act of God or, it was the weather. It's the fact that the trees weren't maintained. And my concern are corridors that are owned, like here in Brisbane. San Francisco Water Department has their easements that run through Brisbane for their water mains, and they're full of eucalyptus trees. And all along Bayshore, that's I believe that's Caltrans, the eucalyptus that are along Old Bayshore, because that's still a state highway, even though I believe Brisbane maintains the road or enforces the laws and does all that stuff, but I believe it's still a state highway. So I would really like to see the state, with our highway taxes, make a huge effort in removing most of the trees that we have, because most of the trees that are along our highways and roadways are beyond their life expectancy, and that's why they were improperly maintained. And so there's liability there. And I would hate, if you look into the records, and I don't want to go on and on about this, but it is a big deal because it is part of transportation. And how many times do the roadways get closed because of trees that fall down across the highways? Highway 92 in particular, and all along the coast. So the point I'm getting at is the liability is excessive. You know, there was a young boy in one of the San Mateo County parks that a tree fell on him through the tent. He lost a leg and half his pelvis, and that's at a park where you're camping under a tree, and that was a $40 million lawsuit. So I bring it up to just say that, you know, the liability is real, and I would hope that maybe you could influence the state to aggressively start taking care of the situation.
Well, CCAG, the Transportation Authority, and Caltrans, we have a monthly meeting together, so
Right.
we have that on Friday. So those are
Thank-
things I can continue to bring up, especially with maintenance. Are they eucalyptus trees too?
Well,
Or are they other
eucalyptus trees, Monterey pines, I mean, it's cypress trees, it's whatever the trees are, but eucalyptus in particular are,
Similar problems we've had in Burlingame and along the Caltrain Railroad.
Yeah. Taking out a lot of eucalyptus trees at once.
so I did want to just mention that a lot of those boundaries that you guys intersect with are also intersecting with the SFPUC. And so regarding the trees, you know, they can impact infrastructure. So I would hope, and fortunately for the SFPUC, they have their own tree people. Okay, thanks for your time. That's it, I promise.
Thanks, Paul.
That's why we're here.
He asked for it, so. Okay, so I will just do some highlights. So what's working, what I think I'm seeing is working is Caltrain. I like the electrification. You know, there's still some challenges to that. Accessibility, how do we get to those stations safely if we're walking or biking? Where do you park if you're driving? But even more critical, the challenge of that is the safety of people who unfortunately, you know, use the train as something else, right? And so there are many places along the Caltrain where it's not, where it's still accessible to people. And I think that especially with the Baylands development, that you really got to get ahead of that and make sure that the train is blocked off from accessibility from people using it for any sad, unfortunate circumstances. I think the new 101-380 interchange, where all those lanes are merging, we got like 2 different merging at the same time. I swear every weekend I'm driving down to Millbrae for my kids' art class and there's an accident and an accident and an accident. So I'm not sure who's studying that, the 101-380 interchange, but with those coming in from the San Bruno Avenue on, and then you've got the people coming over 380 coming on and then getting off at, I think it's not Grand, but it's the one right before that. It's just a mess. There's always accidents there. I'm concerned about transit access for our public transit dependent populations, especially here in Brisbane. I'm, you know, kudos again to Tomas and Randy for getting that grant for the southbound. I think it's southbound on Bayshore, getting the, you know, the ADA accessible and getting the island created, and that'll be coming, you know, in the next year or so. What are we doing on the other side for northbound, right? And so
It's the other way around, right?
I think, yeah, it's actually northbound. It's
The
the one we're
northbound.
improving. Yeah.
Yeah.
so but both sides.
Either way, yeah.
Right? So, you know, there's a mobile home park there. They are very public transit dependent. And Bayshore, you know, we're not sure if SMCTA is going to be involved in the Bayshore mobility redevelopment that's been put into the EIR for the plan.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so maybe something to talk to Maz about and talk to maybe Jeremy Dennis, our city manager, about. But I think if those changes get implemented, that will definitely make the Bayshore Boulevard more accessible and pedestrian and bike safety. But I think it will also create other issues with the traffic because people use Bayshore Boulevard as a, oh, there's congestion on 101, I'm getting off. And then there's a lot of people who just use that stretch as just a zip right back, right through, right? I think it's like 80% of the traffic is just passing through. They're not even coming to Brisbane, right? And then again, to Bayshore Boulevard, the San Mateo County did that study that it is a high injury network for youth. There's been a lot of youth fatalities along our stretch of that, and then going up to Geneva. So I would want to make sure that that is continuing to get addressed. I brought it up to the Baylands people when they were here last meeting, and I think that the changes in the intersections and just really making them more visible, you know, if they're going to put a school on the other side of Bayshore in the Baylands area, you're just going to have even more kids and more families crossing over that very busy street boulevard. So those would be some of the key challenges. And then just the underserved areas, I would again point to the mobile home park that's just right there on Bayshore. And then also looking at Bayshore in itself, the town, well, they got annexed by Daly City, if I'm correct, but just on the other side of the Guadalupe Pass. There's a lot of underserved people in that community, and they really need to have access to transportation. If I could wave a magic wand, I would say connect the Bay Trail. And I would say make sure I can get to it on my bike or on my walk, my feet, on my scooter, on whatever, rollerblades, whatever I want to, however I want to get there from Brisbane to the Bayshore. I can't right now without getting run over on Tunnel or Sierra Point or whatever. And so it would be just nice to have that be connected. And then it's lovely what they did around the marina, like how they, you know, put in a nice flora and fauna and then just put in a wider path. It's lovely. And just continue that all the way up into San Francisco. It would be great to have that connected. And then just to hope that you guys are partnering with Brisbane and ensuring that the Baylands improvements are accessible to all. You know, they keep talking about green streets and, you know, you even made a point that people want to be able to have that 3-minute walk, bike ride to the grocery store. I brought that up. I don't think they're serious about it. So I want to make sure that if we're adding a big influx of human beings of any age, that they will have access to a grocery store or a dentist or a pharmacy or things like that. You know, otherwise they're just gonna get in their car and drive.
Sorry.
We're here to hear from you. So
okay.
again, it's not.
Yeah,
public
underserved.
debate.
I totally agree with what Emily said about the need to have, you know, the bus stops especially that are not lit and not well maintained. And especially in that quarter, there's no sidewalks through there. So it's, they're basically walking out right next to the lane. Future needs, if I had a magic wand, I really would like to see speed cameras not only installed, but strictly enforced because, you know, I would guarantee that the accidents could probably be reduced by a large number, percentage-wise. And, you know, you see how people drive out there and it's reckless. And so I really think that our highways could be a lot safer. But in the meantime, there's some real issues that I have with the exit on Brisbane exit, the Bayshore exit. First of all, the sign should no longer say Cow Palace. It should say Brisbane. It could say
noticed that on my way
Bayshore,
here.
huh?
I did notice that on my
Yeah,
way here. Actually, it's not the same thing.
it should, I mean, there's a small sign that says Brisbane. But that sign should be changed. But more importantly, what should be done like immediately, and I reported through Caltrans through their system to report concerns, and my concern is the off-ramp. The vegetation makes it to where you can't see when you're coming off the freeway, you can't see what's going on the ramp. And over the years, there's been broken down cars on the ramp. There's some pretty serious potholes that are still like connected to the ramp as you come off, coming north. And then the vegetation limits your sight. Sometimes there's broken down vehicles right when you come around the turn off the ramp as you're coming onto Bayshore. and the vegetation's so thick you wouldn't see a vehicle there until you're making that turn. And vice versa, the vegetation on the left side for especially bicycles that are going to be approaching that rather awkward bike lane that cuts through there. But I don't know if that's within your wheelhouse, but
You're waving your magic wand?
Yes. These are the comments we want to hear.
that would be make our roadways safer with the speed cameras and take care of our off ramp. I appreciate that.
If anyone else has anything else, can we email you offline?
You are more than welcome to, or feel free to send them to Tomas and Maz. Both of them know how to get a hold of me.
Oh, Chris has a comment. She has a magic wand she wants to wave. Let's let her wave her magic wand.
Up to you. Come up, Chris.
You've already got a basket full of really wonderful suggestions here, but when Emily was speaking about that 380 and the traffic and such, I'm wondering, can we actually, I recently had a similar situation. I was stuck in South San Francisco. There was a signal problem, and I was trying to find an alternative for getting back here. And the driving directions, of course, recommended that I take 380 to 101. Can we actually influence traffic patterns by influencing the driving directions? Can we communicate with Google and Apple and the other places and actually get their aid in balancing out the traffic patterns? I noticed on slide 11, there is a community-based transportation plan between South San Francisco and San Bruno. Why were we excluded? Could we get in on that by any chance?
Jeff can answer that.
All right.
I'll go through all of these. Commute versus other transportation needs. I really appreciate you're starting to recognize that. Caltrain has really demonstrated that to us. Oyster Point Ferry, one of the problems with that is first, last mile. You can't get to that place. Working with the city of South San Francisco, which has grandiose plans for Oyster Point Boulevard, including, I hear, a BRT. I think we should take advantage of that. And if we expanded the hours that the Oyster Point Ferry works so that you're not stuck in the East Bay until 4 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever, in order to come back. There were people here in Brisbane who were so excited when that was first announced. I'll go and have a lunch in Oakland. Never happened. But the thing I'm really wanting to talk about is Bayshore. Any plans to expand bike share? Because sometimes people don't want to have to own a bike, but they want to be able to get from central Brisbane over to Caltrain or even San Bruno Mountain. But one of the things I'd like to see, I saw that the Bayshore bike lane was labeled as Class 2. I don't think that's eligible for a road that's 40 miles an hour. And why is it 45 in Brisbane, 35 in San Francisco, and 40 in South San Francisco? Bayshore calming. I would really like this road of Bayshore to be part of the community of Brisbane rather than a through lane, or even, it's the only community that's asked to offer an alternative to 101 when there's a backup. I don't know of any community along 101 that's asked to do that. Bayshore is a part of the city of Brisbane. It should be calmed. We should have a BRT. We should be able to expand the transportation options. I'd like us to be able to make it a part of the city of Brisbane. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
So in response to those community-based transportation plans, so MTC has designations called equity priority communities, or they were previously called communities of concern. So these were, they had a bunch of socioeconomic factors, below the poverty line that helped designate these areas to look at equity closer. And so based on their analysis and designation, they've have these equity priority communities. So the one that was mentioned was the South San Francisco San Bruno one. And then for us, CCAG, we do these community-based transportation plans. One thing we are looking at in this plan is expanding our equity definition, because we know, there are other underserved populations outside of the ones that MTC has created. So we're looking to expand our definition so that we're able to also target those areas as well. I hope that answered the question.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right. Next slide. Well, actually, 2 slides because the next one is for council members. All right. And then I'll quickly touch on next steps. So as we mentioned at the top, we're just kicking off this effort now. It's about a year-long effort through the end of next year. So we'll be taking all the feedback from all the transportation-related committees from across the county, aggregating all this feedback, comparing that to all the things we've learned over the last 5 years, developing that next-gen vision and goal statement for the update, and then developing the strategies and actions to accommodate those. And then in the spring, we'll be looking to generate the larger project list. So taking a lot of the great feedback you've given us today and building that list with our city partners, and then drafting the plan for release in probably late summer, early fall, and adopting the plan by the end of next year. All of this feeds into the MTC's regional transportation plan timeline too, so that we get incorporated into the 9 Bay Area County regions regional transportation plan. And then I believe that's the last slide, right? Yeah. So we wanted to say thank you for having us today and indulging us in our long-winded ways to talk about transportation, but you are all the eyes and the ears of your community, and we wanted to make sure that's really reflected in the plan. So thank you for allowing us to come talk to you tonight.
Thank you, Patrick, for coming. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Old business. Tomas, can we do a quick recap on Halloween first?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So we're tying into the speeding, traffic calming measures, and general traffic issues. Halloween, closed streets, 2025. Anyone have any general feedback? I know that the city is doing a survey to the volunteers, as well as I think a general ask went out to the general population of what they liked, and hopefully they did like it. Anybody want to add any comments here for the committee? Paul?
Sure. So I was one of the volunteers, and it was great that everyone that organized it, and the fact that they had police cars where the barricades and the cones were, that really made a big difference. It really did. It made it, it was safe and it was fun. It was well organized. I mean, for the first time doing it, it really, it was a good effort. And so I appreciate everybody that was out there. And yeah, it seemed like everybody was having a good time.
Want to share the other 2 incidents?
Oh, okay. Sure. So it's kind of interesting how, as much as you really want to be engaged with the kids that are coming by, like, you know, I do the mountain club at the junior high school, and I can't tell you how many kids came running up to me and wanted to introduce me to their parents or whatever it was. And it was really kind of cool to see all this stuff happening, but you really had to be vigilant, because I was at Monterey in visitation in front of the Eagles. And at one point, a guest of the Eagles decided that he was going to get in his car and rev the motor up. And I wasn't sure what his intentions were, but I knew that I didn't have authority to walk over and say anything more than I did, that the street's closed, that people aren't supposed to leave. And as a guest of the Eagles knows that nobody's supposed to leave. And at that point, he felt like I was going to hold him there. Like, what are you going to make me, you know, you're going to keep me here? You're going to stop me from leaving? I said, no, I'll just call the police like we were directed to. Call the police and say, can you come over here and handle the situation? And if you truly have to leave, they'll escort you out of here. It's not you're not stuck here. I mean, yeah, we don't want people to leave, but they'll come over and handle it. So that was diffused. But 5 minutes before everything wound down at 8 o'clock, this SUV coming up visitation at the stop sign at Monterey did a U-turn. And if you've ever watched people U-turn on visitation, it's really abrupt and it's fast. And I was able to see him doing that, and 4 kids were ready to cross the street, and I was able to yell at them to stop and had my wand. We had lit wands, and had it right in front of his windshield, and it all happened so fast, and his eyes were like real big, like, what's going on? And, you know, people aren't paying attention in that situation. And so my point that I'm bringing up about taking that task and that as a real responsibility to look out for people's safety, because you could have been engaged with all the stuff that was going on, but our task was to make sure it was safe. So, yeah, and I think everybody else had maybe a few little close calls with some traffic, especially on visitation, but
Otherwise, pretty good.
otherwise, I think it was great. I think it was a really well thought out plan.
Cool. Christian?
Yeah, so I did walk around and I actually saw Paul and I talked to him a little bit, and that's that's a great job. And what I could tell you is, the little I know Paul, he steps up and he has a lot of smartness to him, and he could diffuse situation. But in a way, if you're going to have another volunteer help, they might need some training, because I could see somebody just like not know what to do in a situation like that. You see, and in those situations, they're going to present themselves, and police officers are not going to be there all the time. So it's probably a good idea to have some outline and just prime the people that are going to volunteer or the things that they might come across. In general, so when I walked around, I saw people with their dogs, which told me that, because if you're gonna, if you're gonna hang out with your dog, that means that it's safe. So that told me that the streets were safe for the most part, and people were enjoying each other, and it was very good for the kids, which a lot of this was geared for them, obviously. Some other feedbacks, like I think some of the houses where the street clothes were, they got overwhelmed, and maybe we should get more streets closed, or have some sort of mechanism where we could tell people that they could go to the other streets. But for the most part, I thought it was a great experience.
Thank you. Raymond? No comments? Okay. Well, I was right in the middle of it, so I didn't get to the end of the street, so I didn't get to see what was going on Alvarado or Visitation, but everybody that I talked to, parents and kids alike, were thrilled to have closed streets so they could walk in the streets, because the sidewalks are so, in general, uneven. You can't pass with a stroller and a kid. Just anybody who needs ADA accessibility, you can't do it on the sidewalks. There might be cars parked in it on the sidewalk. Just for various reasons, the sidewalks are not necessarily the safest in town. So they were thrilled to be able to walk in the streets and not have to worry about cars being there. I did hear a lot of complaints about how dark it was, not being able to see because it was so dark. And so I think that's a whole other conversation. But I think it needs to be revisited about the lighting in town and the accessibility for people who are small children, ADA accessibility, elderly, older people. It was just a lot of comments about how dark it was. And I think a lot of houses really got into it. I think there were a lot of decorated houses. I think there was a lot of people who were giving out candy. So my neighbors decided next year they're going to bring in ramen. Everybody's getting ramen. I mean, so there's some real joy about it. They want to be known as the ramen house. I'm like, okay, cool. So I think some people are really excited about it. Hopefully that the city will continue and the city council will make this an annual tradition is my hope. So families can enjoy it from years to come, and it can grow. It can maybe grow in time, like the length it's closed, and in streets. because there were some business owners on visitation who were like, we want to be involved. So maybe having those conversations earlier instead of, I know we just threw it at everybody last minute, but I think if we have more time to plan, we can do it bigger and better.
Yeah, well, overall, generally, the comments I'm hearing, it sounds like it was a success, I would say. I think that these are, and the comments that I'm hearing are really fair, too. I mean, it was the first year, of course, it's new to everyone, but maybe assuming it goes forward, of course, maybe the veterans like Paul and Emily could, if once that comes around next year, train new volunteers so everyone's as prepared as possible for those not ideal situations that might arise. Regarding the lighting, that's also really fair. I did think about that, but I was like, let's see what happens, just because it's Halloween in Brisbane, and I mean, we've never done something like this, so we've never put out lighting, but maybe floodlights is an option, and going forward, something like that. And yeah, I obviously wasn't here, but I'm so glad to hear that it was a success. And I've heard just around in City Hall that it's been a success. And maybe Moz can touch a bit more on this, but I think they're gonna, as far as decision making and going forward, there's gonna be another discussion.
Great.
Thanks, Tomas. Yeah, there's going to be conversation about how it went overall internally, so that we can have this conversation with council with respect to how it was received by the public, what the cost was for the event itself, and that way we can have just more data, and they can decide on how they want to move forward. But yeah, generally, I think everybody heard the same, that it was a really, it turned out really well for the most part, other than a couple of hiccups, but it was generally well received, so that's always great to hear.
It was paramount that the officers were there, and like the Commander Garcia said, that the day guys stayed late, 2 hours late, and the night guys came in 2 hours early. So to have those guys patrolling the whole time kept everything real civil. Not that we expect anything to get crazy, but it was fun.
Yeah, and that's always going to happen, unfortunately. I feel like we did really pretty robust outreach. The electronic signs were up weeks ahead. We actually all went door to door, about 6 of us here at city staff, dropping off the placards with the map, putting the word out on the blast or social media. So there's always going to be someone who says they somehow don't know they can't leave, but sounds like it got handled properly. So that's good to hear.
And just huge thank you to you, Tomas, and to the team who did do the hangers, and to Jeremy and to Carolyn for all of the, outreach and whatnot, and to Commander Garcia and definitely the team of officers that came in early and stayed late. I mean, it really was a community lift, and I appreciate everybody, putting in.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, a lot of staff doesn't live in Brisbane, but a lot of staff was just as excited kind of to see how it went as the residents were. So yeah, we're happy to do it.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea what the cost was, Tomas, roughly?
Not yet, but that's an exercise we're going through. Yeah.
But probably wouldn't break the bank for an event like that.
Not by itself.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any feedback on the visitors? It seems like there were quite a bit from the outside too, so it wasn't just good for Brisbane. It looks like people from the outside enjoy themselves too.
I didn't hear anything personally, but I'm sure they were people who were coming to Brisbane anyways from out of town. I'm sure they were even more delighted to see that they also closed streets. So, but I haven't heard anything. But I'd love to hear if, how other outside people from other cities felt.
Yeah, I think that'll all be part of the follow-up conversations. I heard the same thing, that there was a number of folks from out of town that mentioned that they came in after they heard about the closure event. So they definitely made the rounds.
Yeah, great. Okay. Tomas, the other San Bruno Avenue item would be kind of just updating on the striping for us, if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
so just also an update from Oz as well. Last meeting, he obviously wasn't here, and I was here. I was saying, well, lots up in the air. We're going to wait till Moz joins. We're going to talk internally. And something definitive that I can say we finalized was the refreshing of crosswalks on San Bruno, along San Bruno. That project is going to start next Thursday. It's going to be, it's just in the direction of travel along San Bruno. It's going to be Monterey, Mendocino, Klamath, Alvarado, and Glen Parkway. Not getting to the side streets yet, purely from a physical perspective, not really realistic right now. But that project will be happening starting next Thursday, and they'll probably be done the week after. So So that was one component of the crossings we talked about. I know there was more, but also maybe open up the discussion to you guys and see what else, maybe what your guys' thoughts are on the crosswalks and any other measures we're thinking about on San Bruno.
Ray?
Yeah, so can you clarify when you're saying along San Bruno, like which crosswalks? You're saying,
So let's say, so San Bruno approach, so if I'm traveling on San Bruno, I'm approaching Mariposa, it'll be the crosswalk directly in front of me. So if that makes it, yeah, the crosswalk would be across San Bruno.
across San Bruno?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
thanks. I mean, it's good, just good to hear, because I mean, it just seems like that's just such a safety concern, so I know that this committee doesn't have purview into like the budgeting and the trade-offs, et cetera, but I would hope that from a priority perspective, it's pretty high up there. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And then also, of course, Glen Parkway is right next to the school. A few of those streets are right next to the school. And we walked it ourselves. We obviously agreed with you guys. We thought, yeah, these are faded. These could use some work. So
So that type of stuff, is that something that you have a external contractor, or is it handled internally with the, with the technical staff?
to that scale, it would be a contractor. We have a couple guys we, check in with to see if gauge their interest in the project and see just when they could do it, timeline, cost, all that.
Paul?
Well, it makes a difference what's been done out there. I do have a concern, and that's that at Glen Park and San Bruno Avenue on the corner where the daycare is. Since they've cut those pine trees down, I'm very concerned that that whole area is vulnerable to a vehicle ending up in that yard. I've seen a vehicle take that turn fast and hit the curb before on Glen Park coming down off of San Bruno Avenue. And I didn't know if there are ever like grants out there to do like a small wall that could stop a vehicle or a truck from rolling into that lot. But that's where they gather. And then the only thing that separates the roadway is the 3-foot sidewalk and that chain link fence. And it used to have big pine trees that I would think were somewhat of a barrier, but is that something that's included in safety for the general traffic issues?
I would think no, just because what comes to mind is a retaining wall or something like of the sort. But I don't. That's usually they're pretty specific with the scope when they describe transportation grants, and I don't think that would qualify. So
Okay.
grant-based opportunities, I don't think so.
I was just thinking like up at Lake Street where that house was built on San Bruno Avenue, and they had them install a guardrail with steel I-beams for the same reason, so somebody didn't end up in his house when they take that turn.
I'm not really familiar, but do you know if it was funded by the city or
No,
by
I
the
think,
owner?
I think the owner had to pay for that.
The owner?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they paid
Okay.
for that. Yeah.
But I was just thinking, I'll follow up with the council on this, but I was thinking if we had one thing that was vulnerable at the school, it was that little corner right there.
And it really is. I'm hoping, restriping will help. I submitted some work orders or whatever you call them on the My Brisbane. There's a pine, palm tree just kind of popped out of nowhere there at that crosswalk. So you can't see if you're coming up over the hill on San Bruno down towards the school. You can't see the person who's trying to cross there because that tree is blocking them. And kids dart out a lot. And unfortunately, I know the police have been doing their best to patrol in the mornings and at pickup, so kids don't dart across the street at Glen Park, but they do. And so I think it would be best if we consider or reconsider putting in flashing lights to slow down, the blinking lights on the ground, or something that would draw more attention to the drivers. Because when I come over that hill, I already slow down to 12 miles an hour, and I know it irritates people behind me, but sorry, it's for the kids. So when I stay that speed all the way down, but it'd be good to not tonight, obviously, but another night to continue talking about other potential measures to improve traffic flow and safe routes for kids.
Yeah, I do want to see some of these things also for myself. Just because I mean I'm aware of the hill you're talking about, but the visibility issue, I have not, I mean I want to go out there and take another look. But for sure, we can keep this discussion going.
Happy to go out with you.
Yeah.
All right, anything else from anybody? Any staff updates that we need to be aware about?
Let's see. Well, I was gonna tell you guys that I was gonna proudly say the Old County Road project is finished, but I guess TBD if there's any changes to the configuration. The stairway on Alvarado Sabanero, the art installations have begun. So the mosaic tile artist is getting ready, and the handrail artists have already started working. We've expanded the scope of the project a little bit, so we're adding a bit more cement in areas that's for the homeowner though. Any other updates? The Bayshore, Patrick mentioned this, the guy from SMCTA, that the Bayshore VWR project is going to get funded tomorrow, and we're currently in the process of putting together a request for proposals for a design consultant for this project. And that's in the works. Specifically, we want to address traffic signal improvements. This is something that we went to the city of South San Francisco because they actually manage our traffic signals. So I'm working with the city of South San Francisco to kind of figure out what we want to see in our traffic signals on Bayshore and BWR. And that's it for me. Oh, and just also on Monterey Street, I've mentioned this before, the overlay, but we are currently waiting for one more proposal from a consultant for the design of the pavement section on Monterey overlay, just because the conditions are so bad with a rating of 20 out of 100 that we want to have the most thorough design possible. And that should be given to me by Friday. And then there's also the Klamath Street overlay that I've talked about. Those plan specs and estimate are about 95%. We typically don't pave in the winter, but if we can, we will. But that project is just about ready to go. And both of those pavement projects are between Visitation and San Bruno.
Paul?
Just curious, Thomas. Tomas. Do you guys put a lot of this accomplishment on social media? I think it will help. It will engage the community as well, because a lot of people come here, talk about it, and this type of things takes time to do them. So when they do, if they see them in social media, like, oh yeah, I talk about that, I suggested, whatever, it just keeps the community engaged.
I know Caroline posted about the Slurry Seal project, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I would love to pat ourselves on the back for sure.
We did have our first Safety Street beat in the blast.
Oh yes, that came up last meeting. Just for Moz, there was a desire to kind of have some sort of education in our publications from the city. So just with general traffic issues, recommendations, facts. So we had the first one this month.
All right. Anything else for tonight? No? Okay. Then we are adjourned at 8:17. Thanks, guys. See you on December 3rd.